We keep having new iterations of this budget. So that was the change from last time. And then after the direction that we received from the board, I have included we had it in there, then we took it back out, then we put it back in. So the 1.3 American Recovery money is back in the water fund. So that's the big changes for tonight. So we'll open it up with ordinance number 12, which is an ordinance appropriating the funds for the budget. And just as a reminder, we started this process about a little over a month ago, where we had a retreat for most of the day, and the leadership staff was there available to answer questions pertaining to their departments. And then we brought that budget to the board on the 12th, and that was part of the formal process of giving a draft budget to our elected officials by October 15th. That's a statutory requirement. Then we had the Bonanza. We had a great turnout that evening in this room. So we answered questions for a couple hours on that one. On the 26th, we revisited the American Recovery money. And then last week, we reviewed any of the changes, updates, the tweaks that we continue to get better numbers. And so at that point, we had public comment. We had some questions, and I believe we have responded to those. And then and again, the change that we took the ARPA money and put it back into the water fund. And so with that tonight, I have the first ordinance, which is adopting the budget. And section 1 identifies the revenues and fund balances. So it's anything that would be available in those funds. That's section 1. And so it also includes our loan proceeds that we are planning on taking for the water and the sewer plants. And so that total in section 1 is 112 million. And then section 2 is the same numbers that we visited before. And that number is right at 85,344,226. I'm sorry, 85 million. I don't know if I said 85,000, 85,344,226. So those are our expenditures. And these, again, this is the same number as we keep moving through as we continue to make changes to our budget with each time we get better information. So with that, I'll stop and we'll get a motion on that one and then move on to the second piece.
You have to explain that to me a little bit better. A motion on that one.
So I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance for this ordinance.
We do need to open this up for public comment. And so, yeah, you can, so a motion will be needed, but go on ahead and the trustees can provide their comments and ask questions of staff, and then we can open it up for public comment.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let board members take a shot at it. Start at that side over there. Trustee Gator.
So I do have several concerns. I know I did kind of write out a statement. I know we at our previous meeting, staff had brought a concern to the board about having detailed minutes and staff being at risk because of liability of summarizing minutes and then staff time being put into that. My request is that I would like the short statement, not the entire conversation, to actually be entered as an attachment to our minutes. And I have written it all out and I will submit that to the clerk.
Okay.
So I believe I've been told a motion is required. So I'd like to move to put my statement into the attachment for the minutes for this meeting.
Can we hear the statement first?
Wait a second. Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Am I out of order on my?
Probably right here.
Correct. I have a statement on the budget that I'd like to have added into the minutes for the meeting, since we're not keeping detailed minutes any longer.
Well, I think we're keeping the minutes as best practices as demonstrated by the CML. They may not be to your satisfaction. It doesn't mean they're not detailed.
I understand. So I have brought my concern and I have taken care of addressing all the concerns that were brought, and I have adjusted this to be added as an attachment. That's what my ask is.
This questionnaire that
it's on the budget. So I have a statement. I'm happy to read it first, but I'd like that to actually be included in the minutes, and I've taken the work to put that together. So it's not going to take any staff time. The town will be at no liability since there's no summarizing.
I think we should talk about what's on the minutes separately, since that is not the current item that we're working
Yeah,
on,
no.
but I would love to hear your comments.
Absolutely, Trustee Gator. I thought we were going to dive right into the budget.
I will read my statement. My concerns remain. So we are in an incredibly difficult situation for the town currently. My concerns with the budget are in various areas. It's staff's job to implement the direction of the board and tell us what they need in the budget. I appreciate that over prior years, this budget has been much cleaner and the process has been greatly improved. We've had several meetings sharing information and opportunities for public engagement. While I feel that there is still room for improvement, I like that we are progressing in the right direction. The concern that I have is that there has been next to no board discussion about the budget and what we should or should not include for this next year. It is our job as trustees to look at the budget and work through the budget, discuss and determine what is appropriate. If changes need to be made, that is also our job. To this point, I have not heard a single concern brought up about the budget by a trustee other than myself since our board retreat on 10/9 of 2021. I have only been made aware of questions asked by one other trustee since our 10/9/2021 meeting. There has been no board discussion about what things should or should not be included in the budget and why since our board retreat on 10/9/2021. I am not willing to pass this budget as it stands right now. I do not feel that we as a board of trustees have done our job well of truly vetting this budget and discussing if adjustments need to be made and why. We are in a situation where we have told our citizens that they will have to decrease their budgets for their families due to our doubling their water bills this last year. Whether it is their entertainment, activities, or even just necessities such as food, our citizens have had to make cuts to their budgets to be able to pay for water. We are currently in the process of reevaluating sewer fees, which will also have an impact on our residents, requiring further cutbacks. At the moment, we are looking at an increase in operating expenses from 2021 to 2022 across all funds by roughly 13%, excluding our capital improvement projects. Focusing on our water fund, a proposed 2% increase from 2021, and wastewater proposed 11% increase from 2021. That alone is roughly a $250,000 increase in operating expenses. These expenses will have to come from increases in either fees to residents, our customers, or builders above what was budgeted last year. For residents solely, this comes out to roughly $58 increase in combined bill, water and sewer, per customer per year, or roughly $4.85 a month increase. This doesn't even consider the proposed increase to sewer rates currently being considered. I think that we can do with less, just like we're forcing our residents to do. Will it make things less than ideal? Yes. Will it make the job of staff more difficult? Yes. Regardless of these things, it is irresponsible of us to continue spending at increased levels while we are hearing from our residents that they are having difficulties just paying their utilities. That's the end of my statement.
You want to make that part of the minutes?
Yes, to reflect the concerns that I have, because I have not heard of concerns by other trustees about the budget, but I have some very serious concerns.
Well, we're going to get ready to hear those, aren't we?
That I would like to. That's my statement that I'd like to read. I have concerns. If you'd like, I'd be happy to go through them line by line, but it's up to you how you want to do it from there. But I'm sharing my concerns is that we as a board have not had discussion. We've talked with staff. We've presented questions with staff. Staff has done a great job at answering those questions, but we as a board have not ever sat down. And if everyone else is okay with the budget, that's good to hear, but I've not heard why you're okay. I know I'm not okay with the budget.
My turn?
Yes.
Great. Okay. The majority of us spent an entire Saturday together going through every single line item of the budget through the budget workshop that we hosted, and some members of the public were there, including the leaders of every department from the town of Wellington. It was an amazing experience. It took an entire Saturday out of my life and everybody else who was there. And I'm very, very thankful because that is the most in-depth opportunity to review the budget I've ever had. I got to ask 100% of the questions I had. As a result of that meeting, we made very clear and concise checklist of items that we were concerned about. And all of those have been acknowledged completely by staff, including additional opportunities for me to provide feedback one-on-one with staff as needed at every opportunity, including my regularly scheduled sessions with staff that I have. I feel like everything in the budget currently represents my feedback and my direction that I've provided. So I am completely happy with the budget as it stands currently. And I also have a very clear understanding that budgets may have to be amended in the future based on new information that may arise or new situations. I mean, we're in the middle of recovering from COVID, right? So there's possibilities that we're going to have to amend the budget in the future. But what I am very confident in is the things that we built in and plan for right now, acknowledge the things that we are responsible to do to take care of our town. And there's been some changes that directly acknowledge some of the needs and concerns that we have right now. And I'm very happy that those are included within the budget. I'd love to hear from the public more of their feedback. I've also reached out to a lot of people in the public and asked them to message the board from their behalf from the trustee feedback link online. And you may have seen some of those comments come through. I've been encouraging them to do the same so that you guys are seeing and hearing the same feedback that I do. So I've been doing my best to share the information that I receive. And then I feel like there's been a very thorough discussion, feedback process. I've had all my questions answered, and all the questions that we consolidated together as a board have been acknowledged 100%. So that's my feedback on the budget.
Trustee Whitehouse?
Yeah, I mean, those of you who didn't have the pleasure of joining us for that 8.5 hour Saturday session where we went through 64 pages of budget, they gave us rulers so we go through it line by line. And certain things had a lot of discussion, and everyone was asked, are you okay with this line item? Do you understand this line item? The ones that people were not clear about are the ones that we circled back around to. I think there's, I will say right now that I am fine with the budget and I would vote to approve it. I do have a question for Trustee Gator, that how will trimming our budget reduce water rates to our residents? And how will trimming our budget allow us to provide greater amenities, which our residents have clearly stated in the polling we've done? So I'm just trying to figure out how we get better roads, better snow plowing, better service, and cut stuff. I think we're getting a message that I think our residents do want greater amenities. So that's my comment at this point.
Tim, Mayor?
Yeah, I think we've vetted this pretty well. And questions have been answered, so I don't have any concerns with it.
Okay, Trustee McDonald.
So the budget that we are presented before us is simply a spending plan. It's our communication to the community on how we plan to have expenditures and how we plan to allocate our revenue. As Trustee Kinney mentioned, that can be amended throughout the year to meet the needs of the community as necessary. I also agree with Trustee Whitehouse that if we cut spending, that takes away from those valuable services like repairing our streets and providing snow plowing. And in public service and in government agencies, typically 80% of that is your human capital. In the past, the community has demanded that we provide top-class services. In order to provide top-class services, you have to recruit and retain the best staff possible. And I believe we are doing that with the budget that we have. I also appreciate and value the 8 hours that we spent on a Saturday reviewing the budget. And additionally, as trustees, this item has come up in several trustee meetings for us to have discussion about. I myself have had multiple meetings with Ms. Garcia and our finance officer to review any questions or concerns that I have, as well as additional discussions with other trustees that have joined during those sessions. I, at this time, do not have any questions or concerns about the budget.
I appreciate all the time and the work that not just staff, but the trustees here have put into developing the budget for our community.
Thank you, trustee Jerome.
I'll keep it short. I'm comfortable with the budget as planned. It's probably one of the smoother budgeting sessions I've been through. This will be the fourth. And it's been provided the most information out of all the budgeting sessions I've been in. So I'm more comfortable with this budget than any budget I've ever been, that's ever been brought in front of me. So I'm not concerned with it.
Okay, thank you. I'll finish up to the first part about any minutes being amended. I'm not totally good with that statement that you brought up. There's some things in there that I might disagree with there. And I think that I think that bears further discussion down the road on how we're going to do all minutes. Okay. And I think that we need to think about that. But tonight we're talking about our budget. This is my fourth budget that I've been involved with. This is the best one it's ever been. We put more time, we've been more cognitive of the citizens of this town. We spent 8.5 months, everyone said, we went through everything. Everyone brought up their concerns. I brought up concerns. They seem to be ferreted out. And then we came out, our staff put together a great presentation for the public, and I was there, and other trustees came down. It was a great turnout. And everybody got to ask the hard questions and get the answers. And we had very good feedback on that. And so I was we all left with a great feeling about that. I mean, really did. And then when we had another chance to ask some more questions on the budget, it's not for me to tell professionals what I think they need to do their job. That's what they're there for. You know, I don't tell them what they need for safety equipment or training or that kind of thing, or how to do their job. That's why they're hired. That's why we hire them. They tell me what they need. They show us that they have the money, and then we put it in budget, and then we expect them to perform the duties that they have and meet or beat the budget. And ever since I've been here, I think we've beaten the budget. You know, we've done better than our budgeted costs every time. And I expect us to do that now. And then you take those proceeds or those monies that you get and you reappropriate them, use them where you need them, and or refund them back, however you can do that. And I expect us to do that now. I'm encouraged by some of the information I'm coming across here lately on the outlook for our future. And I bet this first quarter is going to reveal some information. It's going to be great for our budget and for our town. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm confident moving forward with this. I don't know how much more you can beat this thing up. I think we've done a great job. I mean, can you do better? Probably, but we're going to find that out. But you got to start and you got to get going. And what you don't want to do is undercut your budget and run out of money, because I've done that a lot in my life, and you don't want to do that. So I'm confident moving forward with the budget. I am. I don't want to sound inconsiderate to any of the board members' requests, because that's what we're all here for. We're here for as a team, but I don't know how much better we can do as a team than what we did. We've had our meetings, and we've sat down together, and we spent a lot of time together, and we've gotten a good consensus, and that's what we're after. And so I'm prepared to move forward with this budget and then get on to the business of enhancing our water position with the cost of our water, and beating these budget, buying these items that we got in our capital improvements for less than what they show, and then realizing those gains. So I'm prepared to move forward. And I think we've done the best job ever, just like you said. And that's where I'm at tonight. So with that being said, I don't have anything more to add. So do you?
No, sir.
So let's go ahead and open up to the public. Now, if anybody in the public would like to come up and speak on this budget, please come on up. And you'll get 3 minutes and state your name and address and what you've got to say, and let's hear it. And we'll make notes, and then we'll put it down, and then we'll see what we can do about it this first quarter. I mean, that's all we can do, and I think that's fair. So let's hear it.
Definitely. My name is Lisa Cholet. I live at 7424 Homestretch Drive, and I was here last week. So I took a little time because I wanted to be a little more concise with why I'm concerned. But first, I want to say I do appreciate the amount of time and effort that you guys have put into this. I hope you'll appreciate that I've probably put 20 hours into this, looking at it all. And I'm going to just focus on one thing, just so that I can kind of point out where my concern comes from. And that's going to be on the sewer fund. And that is where I am spending my time and my efforts and becoming very well informed in how it all works. And I am heartened to know that you can amend the budget at any time. And I hope that does happen because I think it needs to. One of the first concerns I have is on the 2022 fund projection page, which is 131. When your total revenue is less than your total expenditures, basic accounting and finance, you need to make a change. You can't operate negative. If you didn't have extra money, you would run out of money. You need that to balance. And it's not, most of them don't balance, but this is a specific one that does not balance. I think it's important for residents to understand that the revenues to sewer services is a $600,000 decrease in tap fees and a $1.5 million increase in resident and business user fees. That equates to over $500 a year in increase. And that doesn't account for the actual usage increase that's being proposed for water and for the sewer rates. All of this budget for this particular fund is riding on the backs of the people that live here. And there's a residual effect to that. It makes your houses less sellable. We heard it from a real estate agent last week. Okay, nobody wants a $200 water and sewer bill. And you already know all the complaints about the water, so I don't have to go into that, but there has to be a balance. You say, how do you do that when it's the sewer fund? Because you have limits. Well, there's an $800,000 transfer for administrative services. That's an increase from last year with very little. There's one employee increase in this budget. It doesn't balance out the amount of the increase in administrative services. But I don't know all the factors that go into that. You find a way to not take that money out of the fund. The town finds a way with the general fund to not take that money out. That more than cuts in half the burden you're putting on the residents of this town. That's just one idea. Doesn't mean there isn't an increase, but it's a much smaller increase. Those are the ideas I'm looking for from all of you, the people that I voted for. And I think, yes, we want to improve services and we want all these other things, but we also want you to find ways to not make us pay for everything we have to do here, for the mistakes of the people in the past. So I implore you to look into that further and understand that concerns aren't a critique on you guys or on Ms. Tippetts, who works her butt off. And I recognize that, but just we're asking you to think outside the box. Help us.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I'll sign.
Appreciate that very much. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. Anyone else like to come up?
Hi there, Sherelle Teets, 4525 Ingalls Drive. I kind of want to stem off of what Lisa has said, but also support John, as I feel that whenever I do have a question about what's going on with the town, I can most likely reach out to John and get a response back within a day. So I also reach out to Patti on a regular basis if I have questions that I need clarified or anything like that. So I will piggyback. I did not work on the water aspect of it. I worked on all of the fluff that is in every line item in the budget per section. So that's tens of thousands of dollars in PPE for employees. That's tens of thousands of dollars in travel for all of the multiple areas. I get this stuff is important, and I'm greatly appreciative because I sat through that budget meeting with you guys and listened to everything. I will say, I feel that there was a lot of questions that went unanswered from that. My question is there anywhere that these questions that all of these trustees have asked, are they available to the public? So it would, I think, help soothe some people to see the question and then read the answer. If that answer came back with the multiple questions that were asked, it helps clarify where the trustees are thinking is on how this is supporting residents, but also assisting with answering additional questions. My question unfortunately did not get answered about the Parks and Rec thing on recreation decreasing their services offered, but doubling almost over $400,000 for their budget for 2022. My other question is I did not know towns were in the business of investing in nonprofits. So I've looked at a lot of other towns, their budgets. I don't see funding going to nonprofits. So what I see is if that's going to be the case and that is available, do all nonprofits know they can come and request funds from the town? Then you're opening a whole new can of worms, because then every nonprofit should be able to request funds from the town. Is that going to be allowed at the end of the day? Is that going to be supported? Boys and Girls Club, $25,000 request. Boys and Girls Club is amazing. And honestly, one of the only childcare facilities we have in town besides the Creative Kids Corner or private daycares in home. So I want to know that if you're giving $83,500 to Main Streets, which is amazing. I'm not arguing their benefit. I attend most of their events. But is that also available to any nonprofit wanting money from the town? Because if you say no, then you can't pass that budget. You can't pass that request if you're going to say no to any nonprofit requesting funds. I think it's buoyant to request a $5,000 increase for pay when people are suffering for funding. Right now in home, the town's suffering. I think it's scary when we're requesting an additional 2.5 million in the access funds. I mean, if we're having to strap ourselves as a resident, my water bill is $320 a month, then why isn't the town cutting back on stuff? I see increases in the budgeting. I'm not seeing funds decrease in requests from the town. Building department needs help. They do. Honestly, being a business owner in town and having to constantly submit permit requests, they need support. So why are we allocating funds that could employ those people to other areas, but we're not giving the town the support they need to succeed in attracting new businesses that increases sales tax funds? So that's kind of, in my personal opinion, I think that we can't discriminate against nonprofits wanting funds, but we also have to realize, as stated, if you're asking us as residents to tighten our belt, the town should have to do it as well. Plain and simple. Does it help the water fund? No. But does it help other areas where those funds are being restricted and inventive things are being created? Absolutely. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Christine Gator, 8132 4th Street. I agree with Sherelle that your questions, although were answered, were not given to the public. So just request that that would be done in the future, as well as all this back and forth that you guys do, not in the public meeting, with Patti, with staff, emails. We don't hear that. So we don't have those answers. And then to answer Trustee Whitehouse's question about how will trimming the budget reduce residents' water bill, that's from reducing the operating expenses in the water fund and the sewer fund. If you can reduce those, such as the PPE that increased, things like that, cut those things out, that can help the residents. That's what I ask, that you look at the water fund and the sewer fund and look at the operating expenses, look at reducing those to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Hey, Jesse Andreen. I actually don't want to give my address for safety reasons. But I don't have a lot to add. I just was thinking kind of in response to you talking about, Trustee Whitehouse, you talking about it reducing our water rates. I don't know that even it would reduce our water rates. I think, from my perspective, I think just reducing all the costs within the town will help us, because then we're not paying both. We're not paying for the costs in the town and our water rates. You know, just like, I wasn't even sure if the retreat that you guys went to was that taxpayer funded. I don't know. But you know, just reducing whatever spending you can, like that affects us too. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come up? We'll bring it back to the board. Any final comments?
So my final comments, to specifically answer the question that was asked of me of Trustee Whitehouse. Christine did speak a little bit to that. Our need for revenues leading to our rates charged are a direct result of our expenses. So if we lower our expenses within those categories, then while it might not be a huge noticeable difference, that will help reduce rates. Or in the case of sewer fund, where we're talking about an increased rate coming, it will reduce the amount of the increase. And so that's where the concerns that I have was not eliminating the items that I had submitted in our last meeting, but reducing some of those, where in some cases we had a 10-fold increase from the last number that we had of 2020, which was a high number, to the new requested number for 2022. The other thing that I did want to bring up is I do appreciate the process that we have gone through. The concerns that I have are not about our meeting that was 8 hours on a Saturday, is the fact that there has not been any board discussion of the board members of where the budget has been. And that's where my concerns have lied. It's great that we've had conversations with staff. It's great that we have answered questions and asked questions. But the problem is we have not sat out and had a conversation. And I speak specifically for myself, because there have been several areas where I have major concerns with the budget, which is why I'm not going to vote for it, that we've never had a discussion about. So that's my concern.
Anyone else care to chime in?
Follow-up questions from earlier. The Main Streets program is part of DOLA from the state, and has a requirement for a municipal funding. So that is something I wanted to acknowledge. Second thing is personal protective equipment for our staff who work with highly dangerous situations, such as chemicals for treating water. And there's, we did a tour, we all did it together. Some of you guys were present as well. And we looked at some of those chemicals and the storage and how that's utilized. And to think of skimming or thinking that we can negotiate down the protection and safety of our staff is not an option. And then training for our staff, again, with those compliance things associated with safety, non-negotiable. Those are costs that are required to do the work that we do. Although it may look like a line item that may be unnecessary, safety is never something that we could skimp on. So as a response to that, and I think that was important to mention, not only is it required, I would never, ever, ever sit up here and say that our staff didn't deserve to be safe. So that's another thing I wanted to acknowledge. And then we've had, I don't know if you guys got to attend the Bonanza. I didn't give it credit to this when I wanted to earlier, but I want to give props to our staff because we engaged the community in ways that we've never done before. Since I've been a resident of Wellington, we brought in, there was families, there were kids having discussions on how to budget and what to do with the library. I got to experience that and watch that, and that was incredible. There were stations for each one of our department heads where they talked about their major CIP programs and other major projects going on in Wellington, and major top concern items in every single department. And they had visuals, they had charts and graphs, they had takeaways, they had data, they had opportunities to provide feedback. And it was beautiful because we get that experience a lot with staff. And when we come and do a presentation here, it's not as engaging. But when you got to go there, it was hands-on ask me your questions, I'll give you an answer right now. And if I don't have it, I'll take it and make sure that we acknowledge it. So it was a really cool experience. I saw people in that meeting that have never been to one of these meetings. And that's what's really important to me too, because we reach this group. I see you guys every week and I appreciate your dedication for being here, but not everybody can. And so when we were reaching out and we got to touch all those people we've never seen in that capacity before, it was beautiful. So I love that we engaged the public in a way we've never done before, and it was executed amazingly. So props to staff for doing that. To attend the workshop session, I didn't receive any additional pay. I get paid $100 a month to sit in this position. That's within our ordinances, so you could look at that. Every time that we spend extra time or special meetings such as this, there's no additional pay that we receive. So I want to make sure that's very clear. And although we're not volunteers, because we do get paid a whopping $100 a month, I do need you to know that when we spend extra time that we are willing and wanting to do, and that's why we're in these positions, we're not asking for more. So that's the other piece I wanted to bring up as a response to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to make a couple comments. I mean, it's interesting, this board is really underpaid. I get paid about $2 to $3 an hour for my work. Now, there was an idea floated that trustee and mayor pay would get increased in this budget, and I can tell you that landed with a thud. It didn't go anywhere. So that's important. The other thing, I mean, I understand you got people look at line items and think like PPE and all this stuff. So I've been in construction for 25 years, and there's one side of some of this stuff you don't see. So I'm guessing our employees are covered with workman's comp. I don't know what our workman's comp rate is. I know it can be significant. Talking to friends who've been in companies, so if somebody gets injured, your workman's comp rate goes up about 30, I've heard 30% for small companies. That is on every single employee you have, and that continues on for about 3 years. I don't know if that's accurate, but for my area of construction, that's what I've seen. So we do have a fiduciary responsibility, also an obligation to keep our great staff safe. And, you know, when we talk about having a fiduciary responsibility, I mean, managing risks and trying to protect people is part of that. And I think it's really important to remember that. So.
Okay, just follow up on a few things. I've always maintained that after we get past these two big hurdles, 2 water treatment plants, it's going to be us, this board and future boards and future mayors, you know, responsibilities to enhance that position and cutting little nickels and dimes. That's one way to do it, but we really need to find some big measures to cut those costs to make a dent, make an impact. And I'm encouraged by news I get here lately here. It hasn't come to fruition, but I'm looking forward to seeing this news in the first quarter, you know, with water, costs of water, other efficiencies, the actual cost of construction. I'm encouraged. I'm hoping to see some of those savings come and actually do impact. You know, robbing a few $1,000s for PPE, it's not going to really make a dent. Shows some good effort, but I think that effort's better shown in managing the budgets and buying all that stuff and doing all this for under budget. And that's what this town administration staff has done consistently the last 4 years. So I anticipate us to do better than what we had, and then we can do something with that money, I hope, to do well with it. So that's what we need to do. So if there's nothing else.
I did want to address one thing. I have not been recommending that we remove PPE from staff, but when I look at the budget and I see in 2020, just looking at the water fund, we spent $2,600 on PPE. In 2021, we're projecting $715 in PPE. We could cut the 7,000. No. Projected 2021 is $715. Budgeted, no, spent was $715. That's what we're projecting to end at. And then our budgeted for 2022 is lower than 2021 at $7,500. If we cut that in half, we're still $1,000 over the $2,600 that we spent in 2020, which was the year of all craziness of PPE, right? That was a crazy year of PPE. So that's when I say that is not that we need to remove it, but it's, yes, they're little things, but we could use that money to not have as high of rates increase required. So I'm not suggesting we take away PPE, but I am saying when we have, you know, way more than we've needed to spend in that, we should look at those as areas to cut.
Okay. Anything further? Okay. All right, then, let's see. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance 12-2021, adopting the budget for the town of Wellington for 2022?
I'll move to adopt ordinance 12-2021, an ordinance adopting the budget for the town of Wellington, Colorado for 2022.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
No.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kenny,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes, and I appreciate everybody's comments. Trust me, this is on our minds. This is on our duties to do better with all of it. So we will get there. Okay, we're gonna move on. Next item, ordinance number 13-2021. This ordinance appropriating the sums of money to defray expenses and liabilities. Judy, gonna explain that?
Yes, sir. This is the same number that was in ordinance number 12. It is giving us the authority to spend the money, and it's the same dollar amount that was in section 2 on the previous ordinance.
Any questions on what this means? Okay, this is a public comment section too as well. It looks like if the public would like to know what that means, that's a good time to ask. This just gives us the ability to spend this money. Okay, bring it back to the board. Can I get a motion to approve ordinance number 13-2021, adopting the sums of money to defray expenses and liabilities?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 13-2021, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to defray expenses and liabilities.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kenny,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay. Move on to 3, ordinance number 14-2021, an ordinance levying general property taxes for the taxable year of 2021. Ms. Tippetts.
So the first section 1 is 12.439 mils. And I was asked the question earlier and I went back and looked and I went back as far as 2012 and then just stopped. But we have been certifying the same number of mills since that time. The only way we can go is if we ask the voters to increase that. So this is the same number of mills as we've previously seen. And then in section 2, that number went down last year. It was 0.703. And this is your debt service on your bonds. And so when those bonds are paid off, that will fall off as well. So those two numbers together, I will certify 13.096 mils with Larimer County after this is approved, and that number is inside of our general fund budget, and then the debt service is shown in the water fund.
Any questions? No? Public questions for this item? You don't understand it? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for final. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 14-2021, levying general property taxes for the taxable year of 2021.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 14-2021, an ordinance levying general property taxes for the taxable year 2021.
Second.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kenny,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Last item on action 4, this is resolution number 31-2021, a resolution establishing non-residential water charges for Wellington Water Enterprise Water Utility use. Patti.
I'm coming. There, I can breathe. All right, thank you very much, Mayor and trustees. So this is an item that has been before you a couple different times and been tabled for a variety of reasons. Most notably to make sure that we have a full board in order to make a decision related to our non-residential water rates. So we all know, background, Wellington is in the process of expanding their treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant. In order to pay for that expansion, the Board of Trustees needed to approve an increase in residential base rates to $66. And the tiers were increased as well. So for the first 15,000 gallons, and I can't see my page. Hold on. I'm missing things. Anyway, so we all know that the tiers were increased. So at the time that the residential rates were increased, the non-residential rates were not addressed. That was due to a variety of reasons. Number one, I was very new and just figuring out what was happening here and what was happening with that water rate study and why didn't we include some things. So now that we've kind of got, you know, a foundation and I was able to start meeting with some of the businesses, they were scared. I mean, we were still in post-COVID or still in COVID and in post-COVID. And, you know, there was concerns about what those rates could look like. So the town currently has 137 non-residential accounts. We have those that have the 3/4 inch meters. We have 25 that have 1 inch meters and so on and so forth. Commercial users consume 12% of the total water consumption and contribute 10% of the total billed revenues. So from a staff perspective, the amount of money that we generate was not a concern for us at the time. So we wanted to give the businesses a chance to recover, to have an idea of what life would look like after COVID. And you know, when we first looked at this, the businesses were still closed and needing to somehow stay afloat. So businesses have been open for a while now. And so we're moving on with trying to create that opportunity for whether that be to increase those non-residential rates, or perhaps if the trustees would prefer to do nothing at all and wait until we do a full water study again. So the current non-residential rates you can see on your screen are what the residential rates were before the increase. And typically your non-residential rates only have one tier. Just because of the amount of water that they use, there's generally not an extension of the tiers. So this was appropriate for what it was at the time. We have provided a couple options to you as far as how those options for what rates could look like for those non-residential customers. And the first option would be to increase just those first two, to increase the non-residential rates that are below the $66 residential base rate. So that's just those first two, the 3/4 inch and the 1 inch tap. The 1.5 inch and 2 inch tap would stay the same. So that would affect 100 customers at the $66 base rate and then 25 customers at the $103.62 base rate. Another option would be to increase only those established non-residential rates that are below the 60, or keep them all within the $66, increase only those established non-residential rates that are below the $66 residential base rate and expand the tiers for non-residential customers. So essentially this would be taking what you just saw on the previous screen and expanding out the tiers for what the residential rates are. Again, that's not something that's generally done in a municipality unless there's a full water rate study done. Option 3, keep the base rate at $66 for everyone and include the residential tiers. I was just trying to provide some options. I don't think this is a great one, but it was something that we thought of as staff. The last one is beginning with a base rate of $66 established rates using your meter flow, your flows in meter size with no tiers. That one scared me a little bit. I had Bob Gowing, our public works director, help me come up with that because I'm not an engineer and I'm not quite sure how to establish those rates, but this is what we came up with. And to raise someone's non-residential 2 inch tap to $376.86 before having to pay out any tiers was kind of scary for me. So again, not something that we're recommending. So if the trustees feel like these non-residential rates need to be raised in order to provide equity for what the residents are going through, then we would recommend that option 1. They're similar to the residential rates and it would provide some equity. We did have finance run some numbers to see kind of what that increase might look like for some of the water users. So water bill increases for high non-residential water users would be in the 50 to 60% range, and the lower users would see an increase of around 30%. So I looked at the August consumption data because that's generally the highest. You know, that's your July, your August consumption is generally the hottest times of the month, and you've got all kinds of people coming in, things like that. So I felt like that was the highest rate and wanted to see kind of what it would look like. So using that data, billings range from $52 to $84 currently. Using option 1, those non-residential customers would have rates between $112 and $1,600. And increasing by a business could be between 49% and 60%. Looking at a 3/4 inch tap. So wanted to kind of get an idea. So your 3/4 inch tap are those smaller businesses in your downtown area and things like that. And using that same data from August, your base rates and tier range would be between $460 to $1,000. And the increasing by a business during that August month could be between 50 and 60%. Looking at a regular water user, you're looking at an increase between 32% and 52%. And, I went out and talked to several businesses, let them know, when I look through most months, their increase is about 20% for your low water users with a 3/4 inch tap. They weren't overly concerned. I did talk to some of the high users, and this could be a huge burden for them. And I understand that. And I sat down with the customers. I had spreadsheets on my computer and went out and showed them exactly what comparative data from last year, what their rates might look like if their rates were the same as last year, and what the cost would be, just to give them an idea of what they might need to budget if, the option 1 passed. And like I said, I had a couple businesses that were highly concerned, and the rest were, well, this is the cost of doing business, and they may have to raise costs on a cup of coffee or something like that in order to, recover those costs. So I'm open for any questions from the trustees and for public comment.
Yes, I have just a quick question.
You bet.
So when we first started looking at our commercial water utility users, we took a hard look at their usage, especially during those summer months, and saw that there were maybe some businesses that weren't aware that their water usage was high, or maybe they weren't using best practices, or they had a leaky toilet, who knows? What is the success rate, and what is the success been, or has there been any success in working with those businesses to address those issues?
So this was our first year with our water conservation program, and we have seen some success. I don't know, I can't give you exact numbers on it. I know Hallie's been really excited about what next year is going to bring, because she feels like, a lot of momentum has come out of what happened this past year. So I don't have defined numbers. I do know one business that I talked to is going to reach out to CSU to work with them to see if they have some with their water conservation group, because they felt that they had some opportunities for them to potentially reuse water and things that they hadn't been doing yet and could be an option. So kind of directing people that direction, and as well as having our own water conservation program. So like I said, I can't give you detailed numbers, but I do know that we have seen some success this past year.
Well, thank you for sharing that information. I mean, this is a really difficult challenge. We have been very excited that we have been an affordable community. And one of the things that I just heard you say was that, oh, well, we'll just increase the cost of a cup of coffee. So it's not necessarily an increased cost to the businesses. The businesses are going to pass that on to the citizens. The cost of living right now is already extremely expensive. We've talked about what can we do to try and bolster economic development in the community. And I have serious concerns that this is a barrier to entry for small businesses to come in, or new commercial that are not franchises. And I've also made it my position very clear that I'm not overly supportive or thrilled with the ongoing coming back. And I'm sorry, Patti, you knew it was coming.
I know.
You knew it was coming.
I was waiting.
That this is an ongoing conversation. We keep getting kicked in the teeth over and over and over because we're forced to raise the rates for our residences and now our commercial businesses too, that are just going to be passed on to the residents. So not my happy face. I'm trying to be understanding of the situation and understand that this hasn't been, it wasn't done for such a long time that when you take a look at it and see the end result of what it would take to get us to where we're supposed to be, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Agreed.
So appreciate and applaud all of the time that the town has put into not just working with the residential homeowners on conservation efforts, but with the businesses as well. And I hope that that continues. I think that water conservation is something that we can all do independently to make a difference in this situation. And I am not in support of raising any more utility rates.
Understood. Thank you.
A point of information. So when Woodward and Carana is the company that developed the water rate and released that, we saw it in April of 2020. Their scope of work did not include the commercial users. So that's why that wasn't included, because there was a small number of them. I mean, I've talked to a couple business owners here in town. I mean, I think, well, one, he said, water here in Wellington is really cheap compared to when I had a business back in Iowa. He goes, our water bills were $700 a month. He just shrugged his shoulders and said, this isn't bad at all. That's a matter of perspective. Talk to another business owner, and I'm going to send him some information about our xeriscaping and all that, because he's thinking about reducing his water on turf. So, I mean, I think there's, and for probably these very reasons, but we raised the tap fees on the developers. We raised the fees on the bulk water station. We've been forced to raise the rates on our residents. And I think from a standpoint of equity, while it's a smaller group, I don't know that, and I get it could be difficult, but I don't know why one group would get preference over any other group, because I'm not sure that's fair to everyone else. So I'm supportive of option one, is my view. So.
Thank you.
This side, anyone else?
With much respect, that you said that was because you were new and you didn't know what was going on. But as Trustee Whitehouse mentioned, the study that was done well before you were here did not include commercial users. So that has nothing to do with you, to be honest. I want to clear that up. We did a study, commercial users weren't included. And that's why when we talked about rates, which was an extensive, very long process through lots of studies and consideration, very long, lots and lots of work on this, on behalf of this board too, that we only address that for our residential users. I want to clear that up first. Secondly, raising rates just to raise rates is not something I'm a fan of. I understand that residential rates were increased, impact fees and so on. All of these fees are paid for by our community, just as Trustee Whitehouse mentioned. So not only are you paying more at home, you're paying more for the house that you're purchasing, because those are passed directly on to the buyers. When you buy services or products from these businesses, you also pay for them. So at this point now, we're hitting up our residents three times for water rates. And then the losers in this scenario are, well, a lot of people are paying more, but the losers in this case are businesses that may lose their businesses or have less customers based on this as well. So affordability, I think, is a really important consideration. But the final point I really want to make is, without doing a thorough water study, which I think we need to do. We've talked about charging for tiers rather than base rate for residents. We've talked about a whole different ways of doing this that promote our actual goals rather than just getting more money, but how to help people to understand how to use water and to protect their community through water conservation, those kind of things. Without doing a complete study as to how to accomplish that with all of our water users, I think we're doing injustice by raising rates without knowing. I'd rather have a full picture and a goal that we're trying to achieve. When we did this for residential users, we had a very clear goal. All the numbers that we crunched were to reach that specific goal. And there were months and months and months and a formal study that contributed to how we would calculate to that goal. Now we're taking water rates for non-residential users, and we're saying we should raise it just because we should, which I agree we should. I agree we should. But I want to do it in a way where we don't have to do it again, where it's actually based on a study with the goal in mind and the considerations of everything that's coming and everything's about to come. So we're going to have the 90%. We're going to have all these kind of things and new considerations at our fingertips in a short period of time. Maybe there's other funding options. We should consider that and throw them all into one spot and then do the thorough study that our entire community deserves to make it fair across the board and to reach an actual goal, not just to raise it. So I would be in favor, and my suggestion would be to table this until we have the opportunity to do that.
You mean a new water study just for the commercial users or?
For all rates in general,
And all encompassing,
all encompassing.
Are you-
impact fees, all of it.
Yes.
You feel that way too? You don't like where we're headed with anything or?
If we keep doing it piecemeal,
I get that.
yeah, and then missing the goal. If we have all of the rates together working towards an actual goal rather than raising it here because we raised it there. I mean, I would like to just charge the amount that we have to, and to do that in a way that promotes water conservation and has all the considerations for each of those groups. And if we can do that as a consolidated effort, I think everybody will benefit and it will be fair. So that's my suggestion. And I feel like we're so close to having the figures that will allow us to do that. So I'd hate to change it today and then undergo this process and then change it next quarter too. That would suck for everyone. But I agree, everybody needs to pay their fair share. But I think we should know what that actual fair share is. And I think we should do appropriate study to determine that.
Okay. Trustee Gator?
So I know the question, Ms. Garcia, does staff have the information that we would have like a completed water study for the entire town done in like a quarter? Do we have that information on hand now that would happen? Because that was,
No.
recommendation was we could wait a quarter. We're so close to having the numbers. Do we have those numbers now that staff would be able to provide a comprehensive study within a quarter or so?
A comprehensive study would take longer than a quarter.
Okay.
And we didn't budget for it, but it's certainly something that, I mean, under professional services, we could do that under.
Okay, that was my only question. So I know this has personally been a concern of mine. I was not happy. I understand why we had to do the rate changes on the citizens, but that happened at the end of 2020. We're now sitting at the end of 2021 and we still haven't touched the business rates. And we have users who are accounting for 12% of our usage that are paying for 10% of the bill. So we've passed that cost on to the residents. We are currently looking at what do we have to do for next year? And there's already been discussion that we're going to look at a 25% increase in the tiers that's going to go on the residents. So if we choose to continue to not raise any rates on anything on this 10% of our users, then all of that expense is now going to have to be borne by the citizens. So yes, I understand businesses will raise their rates, but there's a choice. I, as a resident, can choose to either go to a business or not go to a business. I cannot choose to pay my water bill or not pay my water bill because after X number of months of not paying my water bill, my children will not have water to drink anymore. So the difference to me is not, oh, it's going to be charged to the citizens either way. I can choose whether or not to eat out or eat at home or do things like that. I cannot choose to not pay my water bill because my children have to drink water. And so I think that at the very minimum, we need to get the rates at least to where the base rates are on par with option one that was considered. I think we need to look at what tiers could be, but I agree. Let's do a comprehensive study because I would like to see us get away from base rates and just look at what could we do as higher tiers, give people the ability to control their bill across the board. So if citizens want to go crazy and you want to save 80% of your water, great, you can have a tiny water bill. If you are like me, you've got 8 people in the house and you're going to use a ton of water and have the greenest lawn in town, you're going to spend a lot of money on water, but I should pay that money because I'm using the water. But I think that we need to get this to where it is, where it's on par, which option one, I would say would be the minimum. And I understand that's going to be hard on the businesses, but unfortunately we did not sit down and have conversations about not changing the water rates on residents a year ago because people are going to have hard time paying their bills. So it does concern me if we're going to turn around and say, well, a year ago, we were totally fine with you not being able to buy food or do whatever you want to do for your family. But for businesses, we're going to have a different standard, because I understand it's been hard on them. It's been hard on everybody. And the residents have been paying that increased rate for a year now. And I think we need to bring the commercial rates in line with that. So I would be in favor of option one. And I also like the idea of getting a comprehensive study on everything and really looking at how can we go to tiers. So we're looking at usage, and that's how people are charged. But at the very least, we need to get things on par now so that we're not continuing to put more of the burden on the citizens where they have no choice, right? You can choose whether or not to go to a business. You cannot choose whether or not to pay your water bill. Otherwise, your water gets turned off.
Anyone else on this side?
We know roughly revenue wise, what percentage comes from our commercial clients versus our residential clients?
It's a 10% difference. I mean, I mean, it's 10% of our revenues.
They're 10%.
They are, yes.
Okay.
The commercial users are 10%.
So I know some of the barriers for development in town is our rates, and it's rates, it's our water tap fees, it's a lot of stuff. They compare all those numbers to come to a bottom line to see if it's feasible for them to move to town or not. So that's one side of it. And I hear about that one a lot. The other side is, you know, they do need to pay their fair share as far as, you know, they're using the same water that the residents are. And so they should shoulder some of that burden as well for the increases that we've had to do for water treatment plants and increases in other areas. So it makes it difficult to, you know, decide where to do that. Because yes, some of it does get passed on, but there are businesses in town that don't necessarily sell their water to us directly. So it's also difficult to determine that number too. So not sure where I'm gonna land on this one yet.
When we did the water study for the residential, I remember we were given a tool. It's a spreadsheet basically you could plug in numbers and kind of figure out where you needed to be. And then I also thought that Bob and Dave put together something similar. Was that those tools used to come up with this?
No,
or-
because, so the tool that came with the Woodward Curran study was not, it didn't have the right data attached to it. At the end of the day, it just was not going to give us the information we needed based on the true number of taps that we had and things like that. So it was not a tool that we could use. The tool that Dave and his team have created is for our sewer rates. He is not based on the project demands right now. We would like to have him be able to morph that into a residential rate option for water, but or just to a water rate option, but he has just not had the opportunity to do so. It's going to take some time. Saying all that, we could potentially, you know, come up with some other options for residential rates and things like that. But I always think it's best practice to get somebody from the outside to come in and take a look, and take our personalities out of it, take away, you know, what our own intents are, and to have someone else do that work. I would like to see a full water rate study done, including impact fees. We talked about trying to come up with other options other than the residential base rate and things like that. And we just don't have, that's not what we're skilled at. You hire someone to do that for you, and they have the expertise to do that. If that is a study that the trustees would like to have done, we can certainly, I've already collected names of reputable firms that others have used very recently and very happy with their results and with the tools that they received, and can certainly get something online for 2022. So that's what I know.
At CML, it was, I mean, obviously this water issue is not unique to Wellington. Absolutely not. And then water treatment plants and a dire need for the same situation we're in is also not unique to Wellington. I mean, it is an emergency, and we're treating it as such and that we're top prioritizing it. It is not unique to Wellington. This is a Colorado problem in general, especially with the growing towns like ours. So with that said, and knowing that it is a widespread concern, knowing that there are professional organizations that are working with other communities to find the best solution and having all that expertise, I don't think we're doing justice to our community without getting that perspective. So, I mean, we can come up with the best that we think about it, but we're also not in the business of water, and they are. And they've all these things that come up and we're like, well, what about this situation? What about these users? I mean, that's something that's their work. So I think the best next step would be to get a thorough professional view, not just on residential users. I'm not a fan of the study we did before or the tools that were provided. They were overly complex with no understanding of the basic data. And I work in data, and I was looking at it, and I was like, how many megabytes is this thing? Are you kidding me? And so, but I think that's what we owe to our community. So that's where I'm at. I'm not a fan of any of these without knowing all that information, to be honest.
One other thing that I've noticed as I've been trying to go pour through the data and the information is, you know, we don't have separate water rates for like PSD, and we've got the new middle school, high school coming online, and what should we be charging them for water? You know, but I don't know. Yeah.
There's a 4-inch line.
Yeah, so we don't even, that's something you negotiate with the town engineers when you have a large line like that. But, you know, we need to have, we don't have any information to a foundation to determine what those rates should be. So, you know, there's a lot of other things that at play. I was trying to provide you an option if you felt the need to to provide equity, to raise, you know, your non-residential rates. Again, if it's not something that the trustees want to support at this time, I would recommend, I don't know if tabling it, Mr. Sapienza, what would be your recommendation on this? I mean, because it's going to go away for a long time. Because there is a resolution in the packet. If they would decide they didn't want to pursue this.
There's not been a motion yet.
Correct.
No
No
action.
action.
There's been no action.
Perfect. But it depends on, I mean, there could be a motion. So,
Well,
and we haven't taken public comment yet.
How quick can we get another water study done? 4 months, 5 months?
I'm looking back at the engineers. They're throwing their hands up in the air. They don't know. 4 or 5 months seems pretty close, I hear from Mr. Gowing.
You said you talked to new companies?
I've been keeping track of those. The municipalities around us are doing water studies, so I'm keeping track of those.
They're using?
Yep,
They're not
keeping.
the same people we used last time.
No. Have not seen them anywhere, to be quite honest.
Well, I just want to throw something out there. What happens if we make a decision tonight based off of bad information and we end up overbilling our commercial users because we didn't have good information tonight? That is something that has plagued boards in the past, and excuse my language, but shit data in equals shit decisions.
I can tell you, Trustee McDonald, that most municipalities of our size and smaller, their non-residential and residential rates are the same. Whether that was done through a study or not, I can't tell you, but I can tell that when I was working on this project, looking at like the city of Evans and looking at some of those, I think even Windsor was, and some of the others, I looked at their residential and non-residential rates were the same. It was all one piece. So that is why that is how I came up with using just the same residential rates, the same as the residential rates, because that's what I had seen done in other municipalities. But you are true. I mean, it could be bad data. I don't know that.
Well, it certainly hasn't been good news, but I'll go ahead.
So I just want to make something that abundantly clear, unless we are going to reduce our water fund by whatever percentage this increase would give, If we choose to wait to raise these rates on the commercial users, we are by default going to increase the rates further on our residents, because those expenses have to be paid from one side or the other. If they're not going to be paid by the businesses, they will be paid by the residents, because we have included in our budget an increase of roughly 20 to 25% in our water bill. So if we're not going to be putting that increase in at least a portion of that, bringing the businesses up to on par with the residents, we are by default going to be passing more of that expense on to the residents. So it's not just simply a we do nothing and nothing happens. If we do nothing, we're going to put more of a burden on the residents. So to me, I'm fine with saying we don't go crazy on it, but we should at least bring the base rates in par, bring the tiers on par with what everyone else in town is being charged. We have the businesses being charged a completely separate rate that we did not hesitate to change on the residents. We should not be doing the same thing. We should be doing the same thing. We took it very seriously on changing it on the residents, and we've been dragging our feet for a year to change it on the businesses. We need to get this done. And we can take a study, we can take more time to look at changes across the board, but we at least need to bring everything on par. And I hear from this board all the time, what do other municipalities say? What do other municipalities do? What are best practices of other people? We just heard from our town administrator, best practices are the rates for residents and non-residents are the same. So let's get to there. We'll do our in detail study. And if we need to make changes from there, great. But let's not just keep pushing this along.
Well, let me throw a couple other notes out there. And I really am in favor of getting another study. I mean, if you can get one done, it sounds like you'd like to get one done.
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of people like to get one done. I hope it's better information. You know, we're talking 4 or 5 months, possibly, if we can cut this thing loose and get it going. I think if we do, it's imperative to get it done, maybe 6 months. We're talking, I'm a business user in town, I'm a business, we've got 3/4 inch water tap. We don't get to pass we're not going to pass anything on to anybody. Okay, we're going to eat it. And we're going to go hopefully get more in our bid to get cover it. So we're talking $50 a month here. That's what we're talking for a business. Okay, and if you're talking 6 months, $50 a month, it's $300. If you're going to go under as a business for $300, you probably got bigger problems than that. I'm not afraid to pass the water increase, but unlike the rest of other people, I don't want bad data in, bad data out. I'm tired. We've had a lot of that. I mean, in the past, so I'm not afraid to pass option 1. I'm really not. I think businesses will acclimate and overcome this. It's not that long, especially if we can get a real study going here in 6 months. I don't think it's that big. I don't know that, but
Mayor, I would guess that you are one of the lower water users though. So when you're talking about your estimated increase,
base rate, $48 a month, 46.
the increased tier price is where I've heard the major concern in. I haven't heard anybody complain about the increase in base rate for option 1. It's increasing the tier price for large water users. That's the major, that's where it's really scary. I would just hate to make a decision if we don't have the right knowledge.
Well, that's
Why I think that equaling residential rates would probably be, at the end of a study, I guarantee you, they're not going to say that businesses should be paying less than residential rates. It's not going to happen. They're going to businesses always pay more on everything. Utilities, that's just generally what happens. So I think we should at least even the playing field and have everybody in town back to paying basically the same rates, because that's what it was pretty much before, wasn't it? Everybody was paying pretty much the same
Yes.
rate.
Yes, it was.
I don't think that that's going to, be a deal breaker. And I'm willing to bet that by the time the water study is said and done, that the business rates will be looking at a lot more increase than what we've even talked about. So, and I get that businesses are still in a recovery stage, but our sales tax revenue over the past 6 months tells me a different story, even though there's a lot more online sales going on there, but it also tells me that, businesses are doing pretty good. I drive downtown on the weekends. I don't think everybody's got really good business, so. And if you're a high volume water user, you should be paying more because that's what's driving cost of water for the rest of us up is the big volume. So I think we should at least equalize it for now and then wait for a water study and probably do it again.
What option are you saying then? Option one?
So now there's been discussion about tabling. I have the intention of making a motion, but I know we need public comment first. So just so that we don't go back and forth over whether to table it or not, I intend to put forward a motion to vote on this. If that's seconded, we would then take action, but I know we need public comment first. So I just wanted to put that out there. So if that's still a question about tabling it, that would have to come after if the motion failed.
Other comments?
Trustee Gator, do you have, there's 4 options listed. Do you have one that you're considering at this time? Would you be willing to tell us?
Yes, I would be leaning at this time towards option 1 because it is the least intrusive on the businesses, the least impactful on them. It brings things to par. And I think that then at that point, we can look at doing a study for everything and seeing, what adjustments can we make across the board to improve things for everybody. But I would be willing to go forward with option number 1.
Thank you.
All good on this side? Open up to the public. May want to come and talk?
Christy Cannon, 6886 Mead Street, and I'm also the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce here in Wellington. And I'm really encouraged to hear this discussion about doing an increased water study because I think it's definitely needed, especially if we have nothing on commercial properties and maybe have not looked that much at impact fees for the developers as well. So when Ms. Garcia talks about smaller communities having the same rates between, residential, non-residential, that may just be they don't have the information needed to make a really an informed decision. They may just be doing it for parity. So I'm asking the judge, the board to be really judicial and deliberate in this whole process with this vote. Because a difference of a 30% increase up to a 60% is pretty substantial, especially for those heavy water users, which many of them are concerned about remaining open. And so I don't think, when you think about the situation in the past 2 years of COVID and how dramatically that's impacted the businesses, it's been substantial. Although they're starting to recover, as we all know, we don't want to lose any business out of Wellington. We don't want people to pick up and leave. I just think we need to remember that all of our businesses here in Wellington are more than goods and services. These are our employers. They employ people that work here. They're our neighbors. Many of them are small business owners that are actually being double taxed. They're being taxed on their residents as well as on their businesses. And to the town, it's a huge revenue with sales tax. So we want our businesses to be in town. We want them to be successful. And I'm just encouraged about this water study to make more informed decisions. I think that's the right decision. So thank you.
To be clear, I just want you each to know that I do appreciate you. And I know you volunteer your time, so I do appreciate that. My name is Jessie Andrain, and I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that maybe are off topic, but when it comes to making decisions like this, I feel like a lot of the decision comes down to COVID lately. And I don't want to sound ungracious because I do have compassion for people having dealt with COVID. Like, we've been out of work in my family, and you just have to adapt and overcome those things. So I just feel like we're creating a culture of dependence on the government. And when it comes to this water issue, I think that, like several of you said, I think it should be no different between residents and businesses. And, I want our small businesses to succeed as well. Like, I love them. And but, I think for now, if we could pass it, I think that would be great. And make amendments later, just like we talked about with the budget, if we have to. But yeah, I think that we should stop creating this setback for businesses to fall on with COVID, because like COVID's not ending, it's ongoing. And so while I have compassion for these businesses, I don't think that should be a factor. I'm not saying that any of you said that it was, but just a side note. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Kent Allen, 6863 McClellan, not your address, Troy.
Close.
Yeah, real close.
Close me off.
Hey, last time you thought it was yours.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like you guys to pass option 1. Bring the level of everybody equal. Stop using COVID as an excuse. Stop kicking the can down the road. You guys said the reason the water is the way it is because the previous boards kicked the can down the road. You were very, very just enraged about that. We have to do this because they kicked the can. Now I hear, oh, let's kick the can down the road. There's a $10,000 kick the can study for streets, how to repair streets in the budget. Kick the can down the road. If we don't know how to repair streets right now, we got a problem, guys. That's just please pass option 1, bring everybody equal. If you have to change it later. Thanks.
Can you sign the form, please?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to come up?
My name is Reginald Westfall. I live at 3268 over in, well, it's on Buffalo Creek division, subdivision. And we've been living here about 3 years. And the first summer, our water bill was over $250, and I'm going, holy cow, what's going on here? And then when they've been building the middle school and high school, I drive by there once in a while and I see all those sprinklers going, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is going to be a big deal coming up in the summertime again. But then when I left my notes at home, but when I saw these options, the first thing I thought of is just what we've heard. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And every town I've ever lived in, it's been just like that. Equal for business and for residential. And my situation, our situation in Buffalo Creek HOAs, we got some people there that I kind of call the yard Nazis. They go around in the summer and they take pictures of your yard and they fine you if it's not green enough or if something's just not placed right. And it got to the point where I walked up to one of the vehicles. Well, I won't go into that, but I'm just thinking that it should be equal also. And I was amazed when I looked at the information that actually the businesses were paying they were paying a lot less for all the water they use that goes through the treatment plant. So first I was thinking, no, that can't be treated water. They're talking about something else, non-residential. But now that I know it's treated water, well, come on, it's a no-brainer. You know, I mean, if you can't pay your water bill and you're a business, I agree with Troy, then you can't make, then what's the next excuse? You can't make the electricity? You can't pay the sewer? I mean, I don't think that's right. And that's, I didn't think I'd be talking about it at all, but that was just a sore point with me when we moved here, because just the thought that we're supposed to keep the lawns green, we get charged for it, and then we're restricted. And of course, those are issues to that HOA, which I'm not big on HOAs anyway, but I don't know what the other HOAs in town are dealing with. But water's not going to get any cheaper. And where we came from up in Poncha Springs, they had water coming out of their ears. But it's not gonna happen here. And so the longer you don't take up this, make this an equitable situation, the worse that's gonna get and the bigger the problem's gonna be. And you're not gonna please everybody with it, but you're gonna sure please us a lot less. And there's more of us than there are businesses, and I understand business. I was in business, but we should have some kind of parity here. I was kind of shocked the way it was, personally. That's all I got to say.
Can I make a quick response?
Yes.
I just, for yourself, the water that the school is currently putting on their lawn is, that property originally had agricultural wells. So that is untreated well water they're irrigating their lawns with currently. And that's the way their system is set up. So it's just because you wouldn't be the first person who went by and went, oh my goodness, look what they're doing. So, but that is ag water.
That's what I thought, but I've seen things done like that.
You got, sir. Thank you.
She's just signing.
Oh, I thought you were gonna.
Oh, no, I forgot to sign.
Okay, anybody else like to come up and speak? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board then for final comment.
Well, Mayor Hammond, I've heard from multiple trustees, but I just want to be clear on consensus of this board that regardless of which option we decide or moving on one of the options for the resolution, that we fully intend with full consensus of this board to move forward with a comprehensive study regarding both residential and commercial rates and impact fees.
Yeah.
All the above.
All the above. Let's
So-
go back through it.
I will still be here when that is done. I will be one of the trustees that still remains when that study is completed. And I'm telling all of you right now that as a trustee, if we made a mistake on those base rates, it's going to impact the decision that we make tonight on those commercial rates too. And I'm telling you as a trustee that I will do everything that I can to apologize to every single citizen and business that was negatively impacted from bad decisions, from bad data. But if the board is in full consensus on making that comprehensive study a priority, then I am comfortable moving forward with option one, knowing that I could have to go to every resident and every business and apologize for making a bad decision with bad data.
There is something in all the water rates that, I mean, they're looked at yearly. It's not like we're going to leave it for 5 years. I mean, I don't know if they're looking at it quarterly, but they're looking at the costs. And as you're well aware, there are definitely some possibilities coming down the road that may be beneficial. But once it's set, I mean, again, and that was the language I asked to be inserted into the water rate increase, was that if those costs incurred by the water utility decrease, then that needs to be reflected in the rates that the residents pay. It doesn't just, I mean, if that's, because the water fund needs to be, it just needs to stay in the black. It just can't lose $1 million a year. So that's what the goal is. And that's what drives all that stuff.
Hit it.
So Mayor, I'd like to, if no further comment is desired by any members of the board.
Quick comment. Those communities that have the same rates across the board, I wonder if those are the same neighboring communities that are doing the studies right now. I think Christy brought that up, but that was a question I have. So I think if we know better, we can do better. And part of the purpose of wanting to do the study is to make sure we need to charge our residents that amount too. That's the same thing. It's why maybe we shouldn't be charging the residents that amount, but we won't know until we do the study. So in my mind, why would we charge somebody else more when we don't know if we even need to be charging other people more. So that's where my concern comes in.
It's a good concern and I agree with it, but I mean, the reality is we know that if we're not at the right place, it's not going down. I mean,
And I don't think we have the information to
well, the
understand.
data
reality
tells,
right
I mean,
now.
it's pretty simple.
Well, I mean,
With what our debt rate and all the other stuff, what we decided to change the rates to keep us afloat. It doesn't make us money. It keeps us afloat.
and to your point, trustee Jerome, staff has actually come back to us with a proposal that at some point in 2022, we increase the tiers on residents by 25%, which means that we are needing more money.
To
So,
keep, yeah, to
so
keep the
it's not
fund
an,
afloat. So I
exactly.
mean, to even throw out the fact that there might be a decrease is probably the worst thing to do, because the reality of it is we know that water isn't going to get cheaper by that much to be an impact. I mean, if the shares of North Poudre bottom out, well, then that, yeah, but I mean, the reality is there's only so much water in northern Colorado. It's always it's gonna keep going higher. I mean, it might do a little up and down, just like oil prices or whatever, but it's always gonna bounce back. I mean, property values aren't gonna bottom out here. They're not gonna go from a $500,000 house to a $200,000 house. And that's kind of the way you're looking at it with water. It's not gonna happen. So to think that you're gonna be able to come up with a water study that's gonna reduce the rates isn't probably practical or reality. I mean, they're probably gonna say you need to raise them, if I was to guess, just based off of what we know and off the stuff that's going on. So, but I think we need to be equitable at this point and move forward.
Good. Yep. I'm a little more optimistic than that, but I do think we need to be equitable. Okay, my glass is half full with our water. Okay, so go ahead.
All right, so I'd like to move that we approve resolution 31-2021, a resolution establishing non-residential water charges for Wellington Water Enterprise water utility use. And I am moving that we approve, one second here, so I can read it off properly. Option number 1, which would, it's the right page here. There we go. I'm moving that we approve option number 1 that would move the monthly base rate for non-residential 3/4 inch tap to $66 and the 1 tier of usage to $4.56. That would move the monthly base rate for non-residential 1 inch tap to $103.62, base usage rate to $4.56, non-residential 1.5 inch tap to 100 will remain at $118.73, and the rate would move up to $4.56 per 1,000 gallons, and non-residential 2 inch tap would remain at $126.03 base rate, and the usage tier for 1,000 gallons would move up to $4.56.
Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
No, because I do not have all the information I need.
trustee McDonald,
No.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna get a study going, right?
Yes, sir.
Sooner the better. Thank you, guys. That's a tough one. Appreciate it. All right. We're done with our action items tonight. We have an executive session scheduled for this evening.
Thank you, everybody who attended.
Yes, thank you for coming down. Your comments are well received. We got a lot of work to do. Okay. I got 8:13. I'd like to get a motion to go into executive session pursuant to C.R.S. -24-6 4024 F1 to discuss the personal matters concerning the town administrator under circumstances where the town administrator has not requested an open meeting. I also have item 2 for executive session pursuant to same statute, discuss the personal matters concerning the town attorney under circumstances where the town attorney has not requested an open meeting.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Take 5 if you want.